everyone. Welcome back to our channel, U.S. Immigration News. Trump suspends immigrant visas for 75 countries. Who's affected? Please hit like and subscribe for an upcoming video. The suspension will take effect on January 21st, but does not apply to visitors or short-term visa holders. United States authorities have said they will suspend the processing of immigrant visas for applicants from 75 countries. The suspension will take effect on January 21st and will affect applicants from Latin America and the Caribbean, the Balkans, and several countries in South Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. The change only affects people who want to move to the U.S. permanently. It does not apply to visitors or short-term visa holders. But the latest move comes 5 months before the U.S. hosts the FIFA World Cup along with Canada and Mexico, at a time when a series of crackdowns on immigrants, refugees, foreign students, and visa applicants have raised questions about its attitude toward visitors. Here is what we know about the latest crackdown. What has the U.S. administration announced? The State Department said it had told U.S. consulates to stop processing immigrant visa applications from the affected countries. The move follows a broader order issued in November that tightened checks on potential immigrants who could become a financial burden on the U.S. The Trump administration is bringing an end to the abuse of America's immigration system by those who extract wealth from the American people. The department said in a statement, immigrant visa processing from these 75 countries will be paused while the State Department reassess immigration processing procedures to prevent the entry of foreign nationals who would take welfare and public benefits. How does it work? According to the State Department, nationals of the affected countries may still submit immigrant visa applications, but no immigrant visas will be approved or issued while the pause is in place. The U.S. government has not indicated any deadline for when the suspension might be lifted. An exception applies to dual nationals who apply using a valid passport from a country not included in the suspension. The suspension will not apply to non-immigrant, temporary, tourist, or business visas. Which countries are affected? The list of 75 countries includes: what other steps has Trump taken to restrict immigration? In recent months, the Trump administration has tightened immigration rules, particularly for people from countries whose vetting processes, it has said, are not robust enough, or that it believes are potential national security risks. The State Department has expanded limits on migration from these nations. In a statement released in January 2025, the White House said the U.S. could not accept large numbers of migrants, especially refugees, without putting pressure on public resources, creating security concerns, or making it harder for newcomers to integrate. In June, the administration went further by imposing a full travel ban on citizens from 12 countries: Afghanistan, Chad, Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Myanmar, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. By October, the White House announced the lowest refugee admissions cap in U.S. history, setting a limit of just 7,500 refugees for the 2026 fiscal year, mostly to be used for white Afrikaners from South Africa. Trump has amplified debunked conspiracy theories alleging a genocide against white South Africans, though data shows that violent crime is high in the country, with victims across races. At the same time, the Trump administration has cut foreign aid programs that support refugees living in other countries. The administration has also moved to limit skilled immigration, saying the aim is to protect jobs for U.S. citizens. In September, it sharply increased the fee for H-1B visas used by U.S. companies to hire foreign workers, raising the cost to $100,000 per application. Following the arrest of an Afghan national linked to the November shooting of 2 National Guard members in Washington, D.C., the government introduced additional travel restrictions. The ban list was expanded to include 6 more countries, beyond the 12 countries whose citizens were previously banned. The 6 new additions were Palestine, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, South Sudan, and Syria. Immigration officials also paused asylum cases and stopped processing citizenship and green card applications for people from the countries first affected by the bans. Has the Trump administration also been deporting people at record rates? It has. By early December, Trump's Department of Homeland Security said it had deported more than 605,000 people, while another 1.9 million people had self-deported. As a result, The U.S. had net negative immigration more immigrants left the country than those who entered in 2025, the first time in 50 years that this has happened, according to an analysis by the Brookings Institution. The researchers at Brookings estimated that the net loss of immigrants last year was between 10,000 and 295,000 people. Senator Schmidt introduced his bill to expand the denaturalization process for individuals who commit fraud, serious felonies, or join terrorist organizations. Amid reports of rampant fraud perpetrated by Somali crime rings in Minnesota, including convictions of naturalized citizens, U.S. Senator Eric Schmidt introduced the Stop Citizenship Abuse and Misrepresentation Act to restore integrity to the naturalization process by expanding and clarifying grounds to revoke the citizenship of certain individuals who demonstrate through their involvement with fraud, other serious felonies, or terrorist organizations that they never met the statutory requirements for citizenship. American citizenship is a privilege, and anyone hoping to be a part of our great nation must demonstrate a sincere attachment to our Constitution, upstanding moral character, and a commitment to the happiness and good order of the United States. The rampant fraud uncovered in Minnesota must be a wake-up call. People who commit felony fraud, serious felonies, or join terrorist organizations like drug cartels shortly after taking their citizenship oaths fail to uphold the basic standards of citizenship. They must be denaturalized because they have proven they never met the requirements for the great honor of American citizenship in the first place. We must protect and restore the institution of American citizenship. No more talk. It's time for action, said Senator Schmidt. The Somali fraud scandal is one of the greatest financial scandals in American history. All Somali refugees, or any other immigrants who have committed fraud against the United States, must be immediately denaturalized and deported. We applaud Senator Schmidt for his leadership, said Stephen Miller, White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy and Homeland Security Advisor. The SCAM Act expands grounds to begin the denaturalization process to include committing an act as part of substantial fraud against a federal, state, or local government welfare or assistance program, affiliating with a designated foreign terrorist organization, committing an act as part of an aggravated felony or espionage, statements of support. By expanding the federal government authority to pursue denaturalization cases, Senator Eric Schmidt's Stop Citizenship Abuse and Misrepresentation Act would restore integrity to a badly abused immigration system by ensuring that fraud, deception, or violence have no place in the naturalization process. Becoming an American is an honor and obligation to be earned, not a status to be exploited, said Cooper Smith, Director of Homeland Security and Immigration at the America First Policy Institute. The Stop Citizenship Abuse and Misrepresentation Act would take bold steps to safeguard the American public from criminal exploitation, defend against national security threats, and ensure that the virtues of U.S. citizenship continue to be protected and preserved. Engaging in serious criminal conduct, fraud, or terrorist activity undermines those principles and warrants immediate, decisive action. FAIR commends Senator Schmidt for introducing this crucial legislation and urges its swift passage in the Senate, said Joe Chatham, Director of Government Relations, Federation for American Immigration Reform. This is the story of Minneapolis right now and rings true for countless other communities across our great country who have felt the pain of unvetted and unvettable immigration that is against our national interest. This is a great priority for both the Congress and the administration. Senator Schmidt is the right legislative advocate for the American people who have been longing for a return to an immigration system that serves American interests. The Oversight Project is proud to endorse his efforts and will continue pushing to raise the bar for what our nation should expect from those who wish to become Americans, said Mike Howell, president of the Oversight Project. U.S. judge restricts icy response to Minneapolis protesters. A U.S. federal judge has issued an order limiting the crowd control tactics that can be used by immigration and customs enforcement agents towards peaceful and unobstructive protesters in Minneapolis. Judge Catherine Menendez ruled on Friday night that federal agents cannot arrest or pepper spray peaceful demonstrators, including those monitoring and observing IC agents. The ruling comes ahead of planned weekend protests against the widespread immigration action in the city and follows the fatal shooting of Renee Good by an IC agent earlier this month. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security said it is taking measures to protect officers from rioters. Minnesota officials earlier urged protesters expected to take to the streets this weekend to stay orderly and peaceful. A U.S. defense official has told the BBC's U.S. partner, CBS News, that some 1,500 active duty soldiers are on standby in Alaska for possible deployment to Minneapolis. No decision has yet been made on whether to deploy the soldiers, the official told CBS. The state's National Guard has been placed on alert, and other law enforcement officers have been deployed ahead of both expected anti-IC demonstrations and a counter-march being planned by a conservative influencer. Judge Menendez's 83-page order bars federal agents from arresting and using pepper spray or similar non-lethal munitions and crowd dispersal tools against persons who are engaging in peaceful and unobstructed protest activity. The ruling, which stems from a lawsuit filed by a group of protesters in December, also limits agents from stopping or detaining drivers and passengers in vehicles where there is no reasonable articulable suspicion that they are forcibly obstructing or interfering with their work. The act of safely following immigration agents at an appropriate distance does not, by itself, create reasonable suspicion to justify a vehicle stop, it says. In a statement to CBS, the BBC's U.S. partner, in response to the order, a spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security said the agency is taking appropriate and constitutional measures to uphold the rule of law and protect our officers and the public from dangerous rioters. The White House also criticized the ruling. This absurd ruling embraces a dishonest left-wing narrative, spokesperson Abigail Jackson told Politico. Here's the truth. Federal agents have acted lawfully to protect themselves and ensure the integrity of their operations when individuals attempt to intervene. Minneapolis has been on edge since Good's January 7th shooting, with protests across the city. There have been some reported clashes between protesters and federal officers over the past week. On Saturday, the Minnesota National Guard posted on X that troops are on standby, ready to assist local law enforcement and public safety agencies. The post added that National Guard troops will wear high-visibility yellow vests to help distinguish them from other agencies in similar uniforms. Additionally, on Friday, the Justice Department announced it was investigating two of the state's leading Democrats, Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, over alleged attempts to impede federal immigration operations. Both have condemned the IC operations in the city. A reminder to all those in Minnesota, no one is above the law, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi said in an online statement. The investigation was criticized by Walz and Frey. Weaponizing the justice system against your opponents is an authoritarian tactic, Walz said in a statement. U.S. visa bond policy. U.S. adds more nations, including Venezuela, to costly visa bond policy. President Donald Trump's administration has put 25 more countries on a list of nations whose citizens could be required to post bonds of up to $15,000 to apply for entry into the U.S. The State Department website opens new tab showed on Tuesday. The list mostly included countries from Africa, Latin America, and South Asia. It had a total of 38 countries as of Tuesday. The policy for the newly added nations will go into effect on January 21st. The State Department website said Venezuela, whose toppled leader Nicolas Maduro was seized by U.S. forces over the weekend and brought to New York, was also included in the list. Any citizen or national traveling on a passport issued by one of these countries who is found otherwise eligible for a B1 or B2 visa must post a bond for $5,000, $10,000, or $15,000, the State Department website said. Adding the amount was determined at the time of the visa interview. Applicants must agree to the terms of the bond through the U.S. Treasury Department's online payment platform, pay.gov, the State Department said. A State Department pilot program was launched in August with an initial list of nations. The U.S. government has said the bonds seek to deter visitors from overstaying their visas intended for tourism or business purposes. Since taking office last January, Trump, a Republican, has pursued a hardline immigration policy involving an aggressive deportation drive, revocations of visas and green cards, and screening of social media posts and past speeches of immigrants. Human rights groups have widely condemned Trump's immigration and travel-related policies, saying they curb due process guarantees and free speech. Trump and his allies say the policies seek to improve domestic security.